Hey everyone, it's Jordan,
And it's Stacia.
and we're doing a joint episode of Completely Checked Out Pod.
We get to be together. I want to do this more often because then we get to hang out, which is super fun. Really quick, today is Super Bowl Sunday. I know this comes out. Oh, actually,
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah, like 2 weeks. So hopefully I'm in a really good mood in 2 weeks. For those of you who are football fans or not football fans, this game is huge because, do you know why this game is huge?
Yes.
Awesome. I don't know if I explained it or not, but it's because Kansas City Chiefs could potentially be the very first team to ever win 3 Super Bowls in a row, which is crazy, especially for someone who watched them when they sucked. So I got my custom-made sweater on that I made. I got my Chiefs earrings on. I am ready for this day, but I'm also ready for this day because we get to talk about one of my favorite books of all time. And Jordan and I get to talk about it together.
And we're talking about Fourth Wing
by Rebecca Yarros. We're going to jump into it. We're sitting on my brand new couch, by the way, so we're like nice, comfy, and cozy. Love this thing. Buy one. Buy one. Do it.
Amazing. So soft. This texture, incredible.
Yeah, I burrow in this thing. My mom was like, oh, how are people going to sit on, like, what are people going to sit on when they come over? I'm like, no one's coming over to my house that wouldn't mind sitting this close to. I bought it. Who cares? But we're going to jump in, and we're going to jump in with something that I know we've talked about a little bit beforehand, but I want to point out to people, and that's Jasinia's opening note in this book. So for people who
don't read the beginning notes of books. Like, I normally skip over all the beginning notes of books.
Yeah, there's this nice little note in the beginning that I didn't realize was important until Iron Flame. A lot of people didn't realize it until Onyx Storm. But it says, the following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into the modern language by Jasinia Neilwart, curator of the Scribe Quadrant. Sorry, my coffee's kicking in. At Bascaeth War College, all events are true and names have been preserved to honor the courage of those fallen. May their souls be condemned to Moloch. So a lot of people believe that is a hint that at the end, Violet and Xaden die completely.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I don't feel that way. To me, it feels like, especially because it's just told from Violet's POV, that it's being told from someone else doing it, because obviously she's not a scribe, she can't do it. Jasinia is only mentioned a couple times, but it's as someone she trusts.
Yeah, so that's another thing is a scribe, and you'll see it a lot more in Iron Flame, but scribes go out into the war field as well, just to record everything. And what's really interesting, you'll see in Iron Flame, not a spoiler, y'all. Actually, pause. We're only talking about Fourth Wing.
Yes.
I will mention Iron Flame and Onyx Storm, but nothing that requires spoilers because Jordan has not read them. She's only read Fourth Wing. I've read all 3.
Multiple times.
Yeah. If you have read all 3, you might look at my face at some points because it might be funny. Jordan has shared theories with me already, and I was like, sure, cool. Or I will literally just tell her that she's completely wrong, but it's okay.
Yes.
But I'm not going to spoil anything, or I'm trying not to spoil anything. Where was I going with this? Oh, but in Iron Flame, they do go into war a lot, and a really big part of that is the story always changes based on who's telling it, basically. You know that
do we get multiple POVs?
You'll get, no, not necessarily multiple POVs, but a common theme within this book is, you know that phrase, it's there's always 3 sides to the story, yours, mine, and the truth? You'll see in the next book that really comes into play. Certain things that happen or that they'll discover, it depends on who's telling the story.
Okay.
That's another thing to think about with Jasinia. I like the theory that Jasinia wrote this for Violet and Xaden's child in the future as well, to tell about their parents. I also don't like that theory just because I'm a person who doesn't think romantic characters always have to have kids.
Yeah.
There have been books I've read where I've almost completely loved them until at the very end there's been like an accidental pregnancy trope or something.
Like when Feyre and Rhys end up being pregnant, even though she told him she didn't want to be pregnant for a while.
And I will say, not a spoiler, Jordan and I have already talked about this, but Rebecca Yarros does a lot of interviews, and she will sometimes discredit certain theories. With Onyx Storm, some people, for some ungodly reason, thought Violet was pregnant. I didn't pick up on what the fuck they were talking about, but some people thought in Onyx Storm, Violet got pregnant. And Rebecca Yarros was straight up, they're in a war. They do not want to bring a child into war.
And she's also 22, 23.
Yeah, and he's a little bit 3 years older than her. Yeah. I'm only going to bring up certain theories if they've been discredited by Rebecca Yarros as well, because Rebecca Yarros is God and her word is logic. We have to... I did get good news, by the way, on a TikTok this morning about how you see a lot more of Riddick and his dragon and Onyx Storm in their relationship, and it's just as funny as you think.
I love Riddick.
And someone was like, can you tell us the story of how they bonded at threshing? And everyone started laughing, and I'd be interested in doing a bonus scene on that.
Yes.
Because if you think Riddick is funny, him and his dragons dynamic are just as funny. They're like two frat bros.
I need to know.
I'm going to start with the very famous quote. We all know Rebecca Yarros does great quotes at the beginning, but a dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without their dragon is dead. And I know you hear it on all the TikToks, and that's great, but I'm going to remove my cat's collar. Yeah, my little dragon, my Oliver, might be bopping in. I just love that quote.
Yeah, I do too.
I know it's overplayed a lot on TikTok, but...
So much, yes.
But it's still solid within the lore and everything. So a lot of this is going to be me asking Jordan about her initial thoughts as well. So talk about your initial thoughts with Mira, Lilith, and Violet's dynamic. And for those really quick who don't know for some reason, Lilith is Violet's mother. And I said this yesterday as well. Not a spoiler, but we finally get Violet's dad's name in Onyx Storm. So I want to refer to him as his name, which is Asher. Yeah. So if we say Asher, we're referring to Violet's passed away father. Yeah. Again, not a spoiler. I don't think his name's a spoiler.
I don't think it is either.
I just would rather use his name. Yeah. Even though we don't find it out till the third book. Go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously we open in Fourth Wing where Violet is in her mom's office and she's, her mom's telling her, you're going to be a writer. So, and she's only been training for 6 months to be a writer. And Mira has already been graduated. She's 6 years older. And I had confirmed with Stacia, I'm like, what is this age difference? Because when Mira enters the picture, it's almost like she's decades older than Violet, but she's only 6 years older. But also, she's been in war for 3 of those years. And that can definitely age a person, of course, in their mindset and all that. But Mira was fighting so hard not to have her go into the writer's quadrant because Violet has essentially been training to be a scribe because her dad was a scribe her entire life. She has some health issues, obviously, that we already know about. Mira talks about it. And her mom's, no, I don't give a fuck. You're going to be a writer. And that's what I say. And what I say is law. And it makes me feel like she is resents her dead husband. And that's why she doesn't want Violet to be a scribe because Asher was a scribe.
And we do learn more about that as well. You'll learn a lot more about that in the next, especially in the next book. Yeah. Is the next one? Yeah, the next book. You'll learn a lot more about that as well. Yeah, it's really interesting for me to listen to your theories just because I obviously can't give anything away. That's why I'm really excited for you to read Iron Flame because I think a lot more is going to come into picture for you. A lot of people didn't like Iron Flame because of the miscommunication trope, and I totally get that.
Yeah, that's also a trope I hate. It's heavily prevalent in From Blood and Ash. Yes. And those people are actual adults. It was so hard for me to keep in mind that a majority of the people in Fourth Wing are under 25.
Yes.
So
it'll be there. Luckily, it's not there in Onyx Storm. It's just there in Iron Flame.
Okay.
But we get a lot of information in Iron Flame that'll be really relevant to a lot of that. And as you said, you think she resents Violet. I wanted to read one of my favorite quotes from the beginning as well. She said, Mom tolerates me and respects Mira, but she loved Brennan. And I think that's just really interesting, especially that she loved her son and her firstborn. I also wonder if she's so open about loving him so much because he's passed away at this point in the text. So I wonder if that's maybe why. There's a lot to unpack with their dynamic. And I even mentioned to you when she's on the parapet, her mom's signet is weather. Yeah. When she gets on the parapet, the weather gets worse. When she gets off, it gets better. And you wonder why.
So fucked up.
Literally, I think the note I have in there is, Lilith, do you want your children to die?
Which I think she wants Violet to die. Because it's the last remaining piece of her husband.
That could be it. I have thoughts on that I can't share, but it is what it is. Also, if you hear something in the background that sounds like a cat dying, it's peacocks. I have peacock. I don't know if you can hear them.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been hearing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's peacocks in the woods by my house, and they just scream. And people, like DoorDashers, will come to my house and be like, "What's going on back there?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just peacocks."
It's peacocks.
People don't know what peacocks sound like.
Yeah, because they don't really.
Well, the girl who
Advertise
picked
that
up my
sound.
couch, she was like, "There's some weird cats back there." And I was like, "No, the peacock." She goes, "That's what a peacock sounds like." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, crazy."
People think that the bald eagle has that one sound,
Oh, yeah.
but it's actually a hawk.
Yeah.
A red tail hawk, I think it is.
That's crazy.
But yeah.
Then we're going to also get into Easter eggs. I know you and I have talked about this a bit, but
Yes. Yeah.
Rebecca Yarros loves Taylor Swift, and if Taylor Swift loves anything, it's an Easter egg. That's why Swifties are always overthinking her videos, what she does in public, which we got an Easter egg, I think, yesterday as well, over Taylor Swift. And I'll tell you that more off camera.
Oh, great.
I know, right? This is what the benefits of being friends with me. Rebecca Yarros loves an Easter egg, and our very first Easter egg is
the Fable book.
The Fable book, the Venom and Wyvern Fable book. She's mirrors, these are all fables, they're all fairy tales, and of course we learn that's not true towards the end, obviously.
And the only reason why Mira finds this book is because cadets have to cross the parapet with their belongings, and Mira's, "You packed so much shit in here, what are you thinking?"
Yes.
And she's like, "You really need this Fable book?" And Violet's, "Yeah, Dad read it to me all the time."
Yeah, it's sentimental.
She was almost making it seem like it was her Bible in some sort of way. It was just so
comforting to her.
And she knew it back to front. Yeah.
I get it, because I had a lot of books when I was like a teacher and stuff, and I got rid of a lot of them or gave them to my nephews. But there are some books that even though I have no intention of having children, I can't get rid of. If anyone's ever read In a Dark, Dark Room, I refuse to get rid of that book. That was my childhood.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Have you ever read In a Dark, Dark Room?
I don't think so.
I would love to actually, before we leave later, show you that book, and you're going to understand why I love horror so much. It's a scary book for young children. It's not like the stories you tell in the dark. It has stories like The Green Scarf. You ever heard this?
Oh, it's a thing of short stories.
Yeah, but it has like, you ever heard The Girl in the Green Scarf story?
Nope.
Oh, I'm going to tell it really quick because it's actually, so she can get an idea, but it's about this girl who, growing up through her whole life, she wore a green scarf around her neck. She grew up, she fell in love, she got married, and she always asked why she wore her green scarf, and she always just said she was cold or whatever. And then on her deathbed, she asked her husband to take off her green scarf, and her head fell off. This is a child's book.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But once it's like a child's book for 3rd and 4th graders. So like when
that's crazy.
Once you're like, oh, now I get it.
Now I get why you're like this.
Yeah, when Helen comes, but I'll tell you about that one too. But yeah, you'll understand.
Great.
We also get our first little peek as to why you should never trust Rebecca Yarros. Don't trust her. Don't trust her with anything. I love her with all my heart. Don't trust her. Sarah J. Maas is a writer who will never kill off her main characters.
Yeah.
Unless it is extremely written out. She just won't. Whenever one of the main characters is in trouble in her books, I never think they're going to die. Even with, spoiler alert for Agatar, skip a couple seconds if you haven't read all of them, but
at this point, if you haven't, what the fuck are you doing?
That's true. What the fuck are you doing?
It's been years.
But you can skip over 30 seconds. But in Silver Flames, when they're like, Feyre's gonna die because the baby has... I didn't think she was gonna die for a second.
I knew she wasn't gonna die.
I was like, not one chance. However, Rebecca Yarros is a person who cannot be trusted, and we learn that because she introduces Dylan to us in the very beginning, and we learn so much about Dylan.
So much about Dylan. She meets Dylan when they're walking up the tower to cross the parapet. And that's also where she meets Rhiannon, who actually becomes a character in this book. Whereas Dylan, we learn he has a girlfriend. We learn that he's really nice guy, whatever. He's like wanting to propose to the girlfriend, but the girlfriend was like, oh, don't do it until after you graduate. Didn't want to jinx anything. So he wears the ring as like a necklace around his neck. And then when he gets out onto the parapet, he ends up falling over and dying. And we're all just, you gave us so much information about this boy that is just now dead. What do you mean? And both her and Rhiannon obviously cross, but
she's not afraid to kill off a main character.
It was so crazy. It was just so crazy.
I think in each book, she has killed off somewhat of a major character. I'm trying to think of who it was in Onyx Storm. I know who it is in Iron Flame, but I'm trying to think of who it was in Onyx Storm. There's always like a major character that just gets, or at least in my opinion, a major character that gets annihilated.
Yeah.
And that you don't see coming.
Yeah, and Dylan's like the first taste of it in Fourth Wing.
Yeah, so. It's our first taste of don't trust this author. She's not going to make it all work out just because you want it to.
Yeah.
And she's been known to say, if you read Fourth Wing and get traumatized, that's my bad. You didn't know. But if you continue to read my books and need therapy, that's on you. You're the one who continued. Love her. So then we meet Jack Barlow.
Yep, also on Parapet Day. And he's a person behind Violet, and he's ready to kill Violet immediately. And he's not even a rebellion kid. Like,
no, he's not. He's just an asshole.
He's just a dick. He's such a douchebag. I hate him. When Violet's crossing, we know that the weather got worse, so it's slippery, whatever. She had traded one shoe with Rhiannon, so she had one slippy shoe and one grip shoe.
Yeah.
Jack is like screaming on the parapet at her. He kills the guy that's in between her and him.
Mm-hmm.
Just pushes him off. And you're like, oh my God, that's so crazy that this guy is like actually insane. Then you're like, oh, Violet, bitch, you gotta get moving. She obviously, at this time where he pushes off that kid, she was down. She had lost her footing. And also parapet is 18 inches wide, mind you. Okay. She lost her footing, is getting up. And I think she hurt her knee when she slipped down. Mm. She's hobbling to the end of parapet without falling off or whatever. But Jack is like sprinting at her, essentially.
Yeah.
And at the end of parapet, there's like a wall that makes sure you're in the building at parapet. And when that happens, Jack's like right on her ass. And she jumps, he jumps. She had her dagger on her and was ready to like cut this guy's balls off. As she should have, to be honest.
Total asshole.
But she obviously didn't want to give him another reason.
Killing people for no reason is
right.
Never okay.
Yeah.
I know we've already talked about this and you have yelled at me, but
I don't agree.
I know.
Because he's old. He's 32.
Let me explain first. So as we all know, or at least people within the Fourth Wing fandom know, there's already being a TV show being developed for this. We are getting a Fourth Wing TV show. They have already written the pilot episode, and I know they're in the middle of casting. The person I think should play Jack Barlow is the same man who played Cato in Hunger Games. He was the asshole from District 2. I'm going to have Jordan probably edit in a picture of him.
Yeah.
But that's who I picture as Jack Barlow. Right now he is 32, and in the book, this person is 20. However, when we were watching High School Musical was like 15. They're supposed to be 15-year-olds. But they were all like in their late 20s.
Yeah, but like,
I think you could shave his face, touch it up a bit. I think he'd be perfect.
I don't know. I think it's in his eyes for me. I could see him being...
That's a little more shaved.
I don't know. It's the eyes for me.
I get it. I just want someone like this. This is like...
I get the vibe, and I do agree with the vibe.
Okay, you agree with the vibe. That's what I
agree with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I think Alexander Ludwig, that's his name. I think that would be who I would want, if not someone like that vibe.
Yeah.
That is who I picture as Jack
totally
Barlow.
Yeah.
So we're going to go away from Jack fucking Barlow for a bit.
And go into Formation. Where we meet.
Well, we meet a couple of people. I did have another person here, which was so funny. I actually meant to write Dane in here, and I guess it went away.
Mira said to look for Dane when she crosses parapet.
So Dana is Violet's childhood best friend, and she's like in love with him. Dane at first seems like a great person, and I'm gonna let Jordan get on her soapbox, but I'm gonna make her wait a bit before we get into that.
That's fine.
And we're gonna talk about Sigale. I know we've mentioned it before, but I just want to point out, when we met these dragons, I have a brother who is obsessed with How to Train Your Dragon. Like 3 How to Train Your Dragon tattoos, like absolutely crazy. I pictured these dragons about the same size as those dragons. I did not realize that they were giants. Like, I think it was after I read Fourth Wing and I looked up fan art that I was like, oh, these things are huge. And I know you caught on to that.
Yeah, I immediately pictured them as like Game of Thrones, Mother of Dragons sized dragons immediately. Because those
I think they're
bitches are
bigger than that too.
Yeah.
When you look up fan art and their comparison, and she said too, the scale that people have done where it's like how big the dragons are compared to people, she's yeah, that's it. We know Sigale has horns. I know originally you didn't picture that.
Did not picture
does
her
have
having
horns.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of them do. I know her spiral. They're not like this, but they're
curved like a
curved
like a
horn or something. Yeah, like that. You said something really interesting about Sigale's colors that I love because
she's blue.
When I when I first pictured blue, I was picturing like ocean navy blue kind of thing, but you had a way better explanation.
Yeah, because the reason why I also think this too is because they make it such a big deal about some dragons not being able to like blend in well, which is why I pictured Sigale being like raven colored. So black. She's blue type of vibe. So when she's in the sun and the sun catches her scales just at the right moment, like she's like bright blue, but all other times she looks black, but we know she's blue. And that's like the menacing, because when we meet her, she's menacing. She's Xaden's dragon, and she's standing behind him, and she's just obviously looks gigantic, and he's menacing looking obviously as well. But like the black blue, I think is exactly what the vibe Sigale gave me, especially during the first meeting in formation.
Honestly, I love that. I completely agree with it. Obviously, I don't think she necessarily looks black at any time just because of of what we but I do like how you picture it, and I think that's how I'm going to picture it from now on as well. Yeah. I like Sigale. I've never not liked Sigale. We don't see a shit ton of her, but we do see glimpses of her that
I think we get enough to know her vibe.
You'll get a little more later as well. Not a lot, but a little more. So now we're going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the shadow daddy, Zaddy himself, Xaden Ryerson. I love Xaden more than I love any book boyfriend, including Rhysand, and I will die on that hill. Yeah. I love Xaden Ryerson. He was my first book boyfriend love.
Yeah. I also like Xaden. I do.
Oh, I hear a but coming.
No, there's no but. It's just obviously I haven't read all the other books, so I think I can't have a real opinion on him.
I think his walls come down more in Iron Flame. And there is one line, girlies, you know the line. There is one line he says in the next, that
great.
melts me. And I remember when Rebecca Yarros said when she wrote this line, she didn't expect it to be so big. And literally people I even have on my Kindle, I have a sticker that references the line. Not the line itself, but references it. Yeah. She didn't expect us to love it so much, but people have made references. People have also made a cosplay around this, and I'll explain it to you once you get there, because it's not super crazy cosplay. But there's one line he says that just you're like, if a man said that to me.
Yeah, I feel that way about a lot of book boyfriends that exist.
Xaden could say get on all fours and crawl, and I'd probably do it. I'm not gonna lie to you. We also need to talk about his nickname for Violet that I love, because personally, I feel like whenever I don't read a lot of romantasy, but I feel like when people talk about romantasy, it's always very loving nicknames that they use. I forget. I know Rhysand has one for Feyre, I believe, isn't it? No.
I don't know.
I
can't remember. It's been so long.
There's usually a lot of nicknames, but his nickname is different. He calls her Violence. Yeah. And I think that's cool as hell.
Yeah, I love that. The first time he meets her or sees her for the first time, he already knows that she exists. But the first time he sees her she's crossing parapet, jumping, dagger at the balls for Jack Barlow.
Love.
And obviously, Violence makes so much sense, especially when that's your first impression of her. But he has told her, I'm going to kill you. He has said that to her. And he had indeed moved Dane's squad into his fourth wing.
And we gotta talk about that before, too, though. He's like, I'm gonna kill you, and then moves Dane's squad into his wing. And as we know, there are only two ways that you are not allowed to kill another rider via the Codex. You can't kill them if they're sleeping, and you can't kill them if they're in your squad. Or you're like, I don't think you can your wing either. So it's weird. And for everybody who's confused about the hierarchy, I still need to show you this. But Rebecca Yarros puts different diagrams in every book. Mm-hmm. There's always a map, but there's usually a different diagram. So in this one, in Fourth Wing, there's a map of Bascaeth as well. Yeah. But in the next book, it shows the breakdown of the squad. So there's 4 wings. Each wing has 3 sections, and each section has 4 squads. It's a very big breakdown. Yeah. So Xaden's in charge of a lot of people. And he moves her over. And I just love him. I can't wait for you to read the second book so you can find out more. Because there's just so much that we've talked about where I'm like, I want you to know this so I can reference it. But I can't yet. And I also wanted to bring up one of my favorite quotes from Xaden, because Xaden has some great one-liners. I'm telling you.
He does.
Xaden and Taryn, we'll get to Taryn later, but Xaden has some really good one-liners. Mm-hmm. And my favorite of his is, going for blood today, aren't we, Violence?
Mm-hmm. And yes, she's so sassy to him. So sassy.
It's very much, it's feeding my Aries flame, because I feel if a man said that to me, it would be such an ego boost. Like a man that I found attractive. If a man I didn't find attractive said that, I'd probably punch him in the face. But if a man I found attractive said that to me, I'd be like, I am going for Violence today. And attractive.
And every fantasy author does this. We know immediately that Xaden is a love interest, whether you've seen the shit or not.
Yeah.
It's always,
Because it's an enemies to
oh, and
lovers
he's
thing.
so handsome, or type feeling. And everyone's telling her to stay away from him, and she's not going to stay away from him, obviously. And he's not going to let her stay away from him, too, because he moved her into his wing. And it's, okay, it would be nice if it was a little more subtle, of course, because we do believe also that Dane could be the love interest, because she is openly expressing those feelings, but I can't stop thinking about him. And you're like, okay, bitch, we get it.
I do want to bring up a theory that's been discredited because I think you're going to be pissed off, but it's been discredited. So Rebecca Yarros has always said that this is an enemies to lovers series, and I can't get too into that because a lot of people when they first read Fourth Wing were like, that was a very quick enemies to lovers.
Yes.
It took half the book for them to become lovers, and you'll see a little bit more as we continue to go on through the book that I can't explain. However, a lot of people theorized initially that the actual enemies to lovers was Dane and Violet.
They're technically it would be friends to enemies to lovers then.
Yeah. So a lot of people theorize that. It has been discredited, and you'll understand why the more you go on.
I hate Dane.
Yeah, I'm going to let her get on a soapbox in 5 seconds. But yeah, that was a really big theory for a long time, and it's not a thing. It's Xaden and Violet. She said that you're going to learn a lot more as you continue on, because that was a huge concern. People are like, that was so quick. If you're going to do enemies to lovers, to my knowledge, I don't read a lot of enemies to lovers.
But that makes a lot of sense for why the miscommunication trope was so heavy in Iron Flame. Because that's all I keep hearing is miscommunication trope is just so shitty. But that makes a lot of sense because, yeah, sure, they fucking Fourth Wing, of course. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're lovers in a sense. Because he does do other things in Fourth Wing that make her be like, oh,
and once we get to Iron Flame and Onyx Storm, because we are going to do both in this podcast, I had a friend who was like, please tell me you're going to do all of them. Like, yeah, we're going to do all of them. Don't worry.
Yeah. Especially because this is the series that you've also read and that is in my wheelhouse. It just makes sense.
It's the only one that has a chokehold on me, by the way. I've read all Sarah J. Maas's work, and it's great. It's fine, whatever. But those are the only 2 romantasy series I've read, and I don't really want to read any other one, to be honest. I just don't really have the interest. But this one has a chokehold on me, and I think the reason it does is because the romance is not heavy.
Yeah.
It's more
it really is
action and lore, and I'm a big lore person. That's one of the reasons I love horror. I love reading horror that has lore in it.
Mm-hmm.
So since there's so much lore and so much mystery behind it, and you have to make theories and stuff, I think that's why I love it so much more. But yeah, it's the only one that I'm like this on. I had a friend who, I was in line at 7:30 in the morning at Target, not to get the Target edition, just an edition. But I was up early to get the book because I planned on reading it all day. And someone was like, do you normally do this? And I was like, this is the only time I've ever done this in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Ever. If another Agatar book comes out, sure, I'll pre-order it. But I'm not waiting in line for it.
You're not taking the day off.
I'm not taking the day off to read it.
Yeah.
No. It's just this. Rebecca Yarros, please pay my therapy bills. I'm begging you. So I'm going to put out the soapbox real quick, and I'm going to let Jordan go off about Dane because she was going off in the text to be about him, and I think she needs some space for that. So go ahead, babes.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make this less than 5 minutes, hopefully, but I hate Dane. I hate him so much.
Tell us how you feel.
I get it. Best friends, you've grown up together. I get it. She has a crush on him. I get it. He's been at Basgiath for a year, so he's second year when she's first year. And I get him being nervous about her being there. There was so many times when they were growing up that she was getting injured and whatever, and like, whatever, okay? But after the first 3 times of him trying to convince her to go to the Squab Quadrant, I can get you into the Squab Quadrant. Don't worry about your mom. Everything will be okay. I've talked to this professor. Like, they want you in the Squab Quadrant. There was a scribe professor that had said, I thought you were going to be my star pupil. Exactly. Whatever. But after the first 3 times Violet says, no, I'm saying, kindly fuck off, Dane. She just kept feeling pushed and into a corner, and he made it seem like he didn't believe in her at all.
Yeah.
At all. And if you really love someone, you would give them the space to at least try. And she was trying, and she was doing pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yes, did she get a broken arm during her first sparring match? Of course she did. Okay? Yes, did she have to wrap her knee after parapet because she hurt it?
Happens.
Yes, okay. Yes, did Xaden making the threat of wanting to kill her in front of Dane, I think he did it.
Yes.
Of course Dane's going to be like,
Yeah.
I need to save you.
Honestly, I get that.
I get that. But after those couple times, give it a rest. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not your business. And also, he makes it seem like he wants her in more of a loving way at some points, but we know he was banging someone else, and that's made very apparent later in this book too.
I think he also
but
wants
it's just annoying.
He wants a version of Violet that's more tame, like how men usually want that housewife.
Yeah, 100%.
I love shouting out my mom on this podcast, and she loves listening and randomly hearing about herself. I love my mother, I really do. However, my mom tried to really go to bat for Dane when she first read this. She was like, I can understand because when you love someone, you want to protect them. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
However, I'm with you where it's like,
At the first couple times,
sure. We both have had loved ones in our lives where we have been like, hey, are you sure about that? It just comes to a point where you have to respect their decisions despite I know he was scared she was going to die, and I get that, but it's not his life to live.
Yeah,
it's her life to live.
Yep.
So if she wants to do it, let her do it. Let her prove, let her be. She's gotten this far. And it's even until threshing, he's still crazy about it. And I have made it. What more do you want from me?
Even after threshing, you can't.
Oh, yeah. He says a bunch of things where he's,
oh my God,
you should do this
annoying.
Because it would be safer. And I'm like, what
but
more does she have to prove to you?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We're going to put that soapbox away for a bit, and we're going to talk about the meeting under the tree.
Yeah.
Violet is poisoning her sparring mates, which is clever and fun.
Yeah.
However,
they're not dying.
No.
They're just incapacitated,
incredibly
basically.
impractical to the actual practice of sparring because it's supposed to be for when you're on the front lines and actually fighting your enemy. You can't fight her enemies like that necessarily. Yeah. So,
but people can die during sparring matches because you fight people that aren't in your squad. So you're allowed to kill other cadets.
So she gets like really defensive.
So yeah, of course she's going to be like, I'm not dying to any of these sparring fights.
So we're going to talk about there's a night she sneaks out to get
some poison berries.
Yeah, from like a tree. And she overhears a little meeting going on that Xaden has for the rebellion children. So just a quick explanation. When the rebellion happened, all the parents of the rebellion were killed. Their children were given the chance to redeem themselves by going in. They all have to go into the Riders Quadrant. It's up to them to survive. They are all marked with a relic. They are ostracized in the whole college.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember this, but I guess at the beginning it's known that they can't travel more than 3 because they don't want them like conspiring together.
Yep.
The real reason is that a certain professor who can see the outcome of generals. Yeah, I thought Lilith was the
or he's like a colonel.
He's high up. He's high up. He can see the end of battles. He cannot see the end of battles where there's more than 3 marked ones, which are the rebellion children.
And I don't believe that's his true power. I think he can see the future of any person, not just battle. Because the way he makes it sound is like when he said something where I need to lay my eyes on Xaden once a year in order to know. He says that in the book.
Well, because I'm going to bring up something as well. I cannot remember what it is. Is it Insinic or Insinac? What is it called?
I think it's Insinic.
So we learn that if you are an Insinic, if your signet manifests and you're an Insinic, where you can read minds, you're automatically killed because it's too dangerous.
Yeah. Something
that I'm going to say that's not really a spoiler is because they kill them, we don't understand Insinics because there's actually so many kinds of Insinics. In fact, Dane is an Insinic because his signet is he can read minds, but only if he touches their temples. But they keep him alive because he's not like a true Insinic. He can't just read minds willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And he's going to be good for battle one day. But
good for interrogations.
But with What's-His-Face, who can see the battles, I think that's a type of Instinct as well.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn throughout the books that there are so many different types that we just don't even know about because they don't let them live.
Yeah.
So you'll learn more about that for sure.
But yeah, so this meeting is, do you guys need help with your schoolwork?
Yeah, they think they're conspiring and they're like, who needs help sparring? Who needs a tutor? It shows that it's our first glimpse that Xaden cares. Because Xaden, while extremely lethal, is a very caring human.
Yeah.
When he cares for someone, he cares. And technically, And you learn later,
Yep.
he took responsibility for all of those children.
Mm-hmm. His dad was the main guy of the rebellion, so...
He was the leader of Terrandor, and Terrandor is who was rebelling. But Xaden personally took on the responsibility of all those children, and we learned that later. Mm-hmm. So he genuinely wants them to succeed. Not just because, oh, we have a war to win or whatever. He just genuinely wants them to succeed, and it shows how much he cares, even if he seems a little harsh doing so. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think he is like the epitome of tough love. For sure.
Yes.
With definitely, obviously, a soft spot for quite a few people.
And it's the first time we see him and Violet really interact privately.
Because she tries sneaking down the tree after they all are gone. And turns out Xaden was already aware that she was there. So...
And there's a lot to this scene. I told Jordan this the other day, but there's so much to that scene that I want to come back to once you've read Iron Flame. That's a very important scene. There's a lot of things in there where I'm like, oh, I wish you would know this.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk more about that next time. But I do want to talk about the gauntlet. So when I read this, the gauntlet to me was like that obstacle course in Wipeout.
Yeah. And I thought they were scaling a mountainside, basically almost vertical, and things were coming at them like this way, and they were having to scale the mountain but also dodge these obstacles on the way up, and that's literally not at all what it is. The Wipeout is way closer.
Yeah, I sent a picture of it to Jordan when she was reading it because I was like, I need you to have the image of it.
Yeah, I was so confused.
But the real question is, Jordan, would you survive the gauntlet? Would you be able to do it?
I think I could do it. I love obstacle courses. I don't think I could do the spinny things. Everything else, I think I could have a really good chance, especially if I was like training, like how they're training to get like their strength up and all of that. Like I love rock climbing. Mm-hmm. I love doing those types of activities, but I don't think I could do the spinny thing at all.
Yeah, I know myself. I'm pretty self-aware. I would not be able to do the gauntlet. I don't think there's one thing on that gauntlet that I could do. And that's not, I think I'm a pretty strong person. I lift weights, but I trip over myself all the time. If I was in this universe, I would have become a scribe. There is no way that I would have gone to the writer's quadrant. I'm good.
Yeah, I think I would have been a healer, 100%.
Oh, I think so too. That's a good one. I think you would have been a healer. No, I would have been a scribe. Put me in a library.
Yeah,
I get it though. The gauntlet is important though because it tests their ability to. It has certain obstacles to where they test their ability to stay on their dragon, stay in their seat, everything like that.
Get off their dragon, get back on.
So you have to go through the gauntlet in order to prove that you can even go to threshing to bond a dragon.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about presentation and threshing. After they do the gauntlet, they go straight to presentation where they walk up and down this like path and the dragons are looking at them. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of dragons that aren't there, but there's one particular dragon that is there. Mm-hmm. And it is a golden feather tail. Yeah. She's very small. I say she because we know she's a she. She's very small. She's very harmless. She's probably the size of like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, and they heard about the feather tails, but they don't know anything about feather tails.
Yeah, there's nothing. We know at the beginning and throughout the book that Asher Sorengale is actually studying feather tails. But yeah, we just don't know really anything about them. So this feather tail shows up and everyone's freaking out. Like I said, there's certain dragons that are not at presentation that we learn.
Yeah. And there are two of her squad mates that die during presentation. And a really cute moment that I love that Rebecca included, which is one of my favorite moments.
Yes.
Because at the beginning, Mira had given Violet a corset type of vest that was made from her dragon's scales. Because she knows someone with the signet of shrinking large things into small things. Mm-hmm. And dragon scales are like impenetrable. So it's great armor. And it has saved Violet more than once.
Yes.
So these two dragons, she feels like the hot breath of them. And they start like sniffing her as if they're like dogs trying to catch a scent.
Yeah.
And it's so cute. And they're like, and she's talking to them like, oh, you recognize Teen or Tiny, whatever his...
I think it's Teeny.
Yeah, whatever Mira's dragon's name is. Like, Mira gave me armor made of his scales, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they approve her in that really sense as well. And it is just so precious. And Rhiannon's in front of her and she's, okay.
Yeah.
Which is so funny.
It's so funny because dragons are so unpredictable.
Yeah.
So then we get to threshing, and threshing is where a dragon kind of decides to bond with you or not.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is no one can interfere with threshing. Once they're let into the arena type area, not a wing leader, not a squad leader, not a general, nobody can interfere.
Yeah. It's almost like a free-for-all in a sense,
Yes.
because as Jack Barlow is trying to kill Violet, so she thinks, oh, he might try and kill me at this time.
Because they can technically do that in threshing. There is a scene where Jack, Oren, and some other kid.
Doesn't matter.
They're trying to find the Feathertail and kill it. Yeah. I don't understand why they want to prey so much on the meek, but you know what? Pop off.
Yeah, it was just so weird. And Violet's like, just because it's a smaller dragon doesn't mean it deserves to die type of vibe. So she is trying to find the Feathertail before they find the Feathertail. And she ends up finding the Feathertail basically in an open field, and it's just glistening in the sun because it's bright yellow. So just such an obvious target. And as she gets closer to the Feathertail, like, she comments on how it doesn't have claws, it has paws. And I picture them as tiger paws, where they're like murder mittens.
And I have a theory about the paws that I want to circle back to once you know more.
Yeah.
But continue.
She gets there and she's, shoot, go away, they're going to kill you. And the Feathertail, she's like looking at her like, huh? Like almost a golden retriever tipping its head. What are you talking about?
And so what's interesting about that, though, is another one of Xaden's fun one-liners. He can't interfere. He's over there saying things like, oh, here they come and everything. And Jack yells back to him, you can't interfere. And my favorite one-liner is, no, but I can narrate. And I think that's so funny.
I also think that's so funny. And
I love Xaden and his little loopholes.
Oh my God. And so she's like defending the Feathertail against three guys. So it's 3-on-1. The Feathertail looks like it can't do anything because it doesn't have actual claws, or it's smaller than all the other dragons. So she was able to throw a dagger into Jack's shoulder and like incapacitates his shoulder, so he actually can't use his arm at all.
And Jack retreats like a coward.
Yeah, he hides, especially after he called out Xaden for narrating that Oren was coming from the back to try and get her. And she ends up knocking out Oren in some way, but also a big ass dragon shows up. And it's Xaden Sigel watching this happen. And this big ass dragon shows up and eats the other guy, who we can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
But it doesn't matter because he gets eaten.
Doesn't matter.
Jack ran off, and he's talking to Violet, and he's saying, are you going to kill that one? And she's, no, he's knocked out, it wouldn't be fair. And
wait, Xaden saying that?
The dragon,
sorry. We have a new dragon
her.
enter the chat.
Yes. The dragon's talking to her after he eats that other one, or burns him. I can't remember what it was. And he's looking down at Oren, and he's, are you going to kill him? And she's, no. And then he says, if he was given the same opportunity, he would take it.
Absolutely.
And she's, yeah, that's not who I am.
Yeah, we're going to bring Terran into the chat. Terran is a black dragon. He is the second largest black dragon. He's the biggest dragon.
Unbonded.
Unbonded, yeah. So really quick about Terran, and we talked about this a little bit. Before Violet came along and he bonded Violet, he was bonded to a man named Neolin. And Neolin died the same time Brennan did in the Battle of Orisha. He died. It was a huge loss for Terran. And Terran has very openly said that this is the last time he will bear a rider. He's middle-aged. He is over it. He's going to bear one more rider, and he chose Violet.
Yeah. Just going back to that quote.
Yeah.
When a dragon dies, the rider dies. When the rider dies, the dragon just suffers immense pain, depression.
It's like a death in the family. It's a lot because dragons have to bond humans in order to channel their power through. So we have Terran, and then the golden one, the golden Feathertail, also bonds Violet. Her name is Andarna.
She's so cute.
Love Andarna. Something that was a shock to me is we learn about Terran, but Terran's not at presentation and everything like that. Once Terran showed up, I was like, yes, he's going to bond her. And I always knew that she was going to bond Andarna, but I was genuinely shocked beforehand that she would bond two dragons. I was shocked about that. I know you said you weren't as shocked.
Yeah, I was not as shocked. Just because I knew going into this. If I would have never seen anything on social media or whatever, maybe you would have been. But we know that Violet is the main character. We know that there is something special about her. And when Terran showed up, I was like, all right.
Well, and Rebecca Yarros has always said that Terran is very much modeled after her old bulldog that passed away.
Yeah.
He's just old. He's over it.
Yeah.
But I love his one-liners too.
He's got personality.
Yeah, when Jack and them are trying to attack Violet, she gets slashed in the arm, and Taryn looks at her and goes, "You're bleeding. Stop it." I just love that man.
Yeah.
I think he's so funny.
We forgot to talk about what happened at the gauntlet. That is important.
Oh, yeah.
That reminded me because she also had wraps around her hands from the gauntlet because her hands were bleeding.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, really quick going back to gauntlet because this is important. She had used foreign objects to get up the gauntlet and actually pass. She had used rope that was attached. You can use rope, but it'll just deduct points or time from your thing or add time. So you have a longer time, whatever. And so she used the rope to climb up this like half chimney thing where she would have had to scale it like this, like in an X formation. And to run up the ramp, that's where she had her dagger. And she was able to stab the ramp with her dagger, pull herself up, and then put her foot on the dagger to push herself up over the edge. And there's this woman, Amber, who is a second year like Dane, who they were fucking 100%.
Oh, 100%.
And she's, she can't do that. She has to be disqualified. She used something that wasn't a part of the whatever, blah, blah, blah. And Violet ends up using a part in the codex where it's like anything a cadet brings over the parapet becomes their person. So she used her dagger that she brought over in order to go, and it's not a disqualifying act because it was on her person. So that's the first instance where we see where Dane's like fighting himself is it the codex that I believe, or is it like Violet?
Internal struggle.
Right, internal struggle. And Amber is like the person that's like fighting really hard about it. So very important because it's important later on. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you want to talk about...
Yeah, so the next one I was going to talk about really quick was Taryn says a line. Violet's like, "Why would you bond me? I'm weak. I'm not a great asset, blah, blah, blah." And Taryn says a line that to this day, after reading all three books, I think is very important. He says, "I know exactly who and what you are, Violet, Soar, and Gale."
Yeah.
Jordan went on a nice little rant yesterday that I loved.
Yeah.
Where she was like, "Oh, he knows that she's a good person." And
yeah, because she stood up for Andarna, and during formation where we meet Sigale's looking at her, and obviously Sigale and Xaden can talk.
Yeah.
But it's just so obvious that she's like studying her, and we find out later that Sigale and Taryn are mated. So I think back to the flight field with their dragons, it's very obvious that Taryn is like the head honcho of all the other dragons. So I also think the two dragons that had sniffed her may have said something, or maybe they were just like talking about her and Taryn was like overhearing. But that's why I thought that's what he said.
And that's reasonable when you've only read the first book.
Exactly.
There are some other evidence to where I think Taryn is hiding something. Taryn knows a lot more about Violet than she knows about herself. And we'll get in more to that in the next one as well.
But do you think he knew that stuff?
Yes.
Before even meeting her, or he knew it once he bonded with her?
Nope, he knew it beforehand.
Okay.
I think he planned to bond Violet. And there's way before Violet even entered the writer's quadrant.
Yeah, and it begs the question, how did he know she existed?
Move, Oliver. It's a lot, and we'll get into it. But yeah, that line always makes me really sketched with Taryn, where I'm like, know what she is. What is she? So now that she's bonded Taryn and everything, we're going to get into the fun, fucked up family that they are. So Sigale and Taryn are mated. They're basically married. And they've fostered Andarna, which I love.
Yeah,
they kind of adopted her. Just a little family.
Like little kid.
So now that they've done that, Xaden can obviously talk to Sigale. Taryn can talk to Violet. Yeah. Sigale and Taryn are bonded. So they can all talk, mated. So they can all talk to each other. Right. Usually only a bonded dragon can talk to the human, and only a human can talk to their bonded dragon. Right. But since we're in this fucked up little family, we'll learn that Xaden and Violet can talk to each other. Sigale can technically talk to Violet, even though she doesn't do it often. Yeah. Taryn can technically talk to Xaden, even though he doesn't do it often. Before we go more into that, though, I want to talk about Rebecca Yarros' representation in her books. She does such a good job of representing different people in ways that where you don't have to be like crazy about it. So we know Riddick is bi, which is so fun.
And so is Rhiannon.
And so is Rhiannon, yes. There are different races. Rhiannon is black. She always has said that Xaden is not white. I've always pictured him as Hispanic.
And I had pictured him like Middle Eastern Arab.
Yes. So one of
like
my...
almost an Aladdin type of vibe is exactly how I pictured Xaden.
Love that. One of my favorite characters, though, is Jacinia. We talked about a little bit at the beginning. Jacinia is deaf. And I'm not going to lie, I always knew Jacinia was deaf. But I thought all of the scribes signed. Because there's so many people in the book who know how to sign. I thought since it was a library and it was supposed to be quiet, that just everyone signed. I knew Jacinia was deaf from the beginning. I knew that much. But I didn't know that, like, signing wasn't like the way the scribes do things. And I've seen a lot of TikToks of people who are now just figuring that out as well.
Yeah, I immediately was like, the way that Violet talked about Jacinia, they had been friends. It almost sounds like they'd been friends since childhood as well.
Yes.
And it seems like, obviously, she wanted to be able to talk to her friend in a way where, you know, it was on her level.
Yeah.
So she learned how to sign.
But there's so many... Liam knows how to sign. Rhiannon knows how to sign. Riddick knows how to sign.
Yep.
Xaden and Imogen know how to sign. You'll learn that as well. A lot of people know how to sign.
Are they... okay, my other thing, too, is obviously Biscayeth is war college. What type of schooling were they doing before to where... were they able to learn ASL
I don't know.
we learned Spanish?
We're going to learn, too, that there's so many languages in this book, real and not. Yeah, but a lot of people know ASL. The only person who doesn't know it is Sawyer, and that's a funny side story. But... Yeah. I just really love the representation in this book.
Yeah.
She does such a good job with it. Without making it so big and in your face.
Yes.
It's very subtle representation.
Yeah, I liked how they described Imogen, too, as pink hair, shaved head, where everyone else... We know that a lot of the girls have short hair because it's, like, liability if they have long hair, whatever. But they make her sound so much more rebellious. Absolutely. Especially because she is also a rebellion child. So I really liked... the vibe that Imogen was giving.
So we're going to move on to the attempted assassination of Violet Sorrengail. While she is sleeping, there are some people who do try to come assassinate her.
Yeah.
Which is very illegal according to the Codex.
And this is in the part because when they first become cadets, they're in a shared sleeping space.
Yes.
And then after they bond with a dragon, they get moved to have their own room.
Hey guys, it's Jordan. I have no idea what happened to the end half of our video, but the audio and video do not sync. We do have one more character reveal image for Liam. However, I recommend maybe not watching the video and just listening. Unless that doesn't bother you, then continue on. Just wanted to give a heads up.
So now she's in her own room. These people come in. Taryn wakes her up. Taryn's trying to get there as fast as he can, but not fast enough. So he wakes up Xaden to try to come. In the midst of all this stress, though, she is able to channel from Indarna. And Darna is able to stop time.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And she stops time when Xaden opens the door. Orin had just choked her out and was ready to slit her throat. And Orin was like, back away, Ryerson, whatever. And then time stops. She's able to mosey on out and go over and stand by where Xaden is by the door. And when time starts again, Xaden's able to kill everyone but
something
Orin.
Also to bring up is, she even says that there's never been a recorded case of time stopping. They didn't think time stopping was a thing.
Yeah.
We do learn later that Indarna is able to do this one more time and then is never able to do it again. So... that power doesn't necessarily linger around.
Yeah. It's like only as she is her age now and as she gets older. That's what it gave to me at the end because Xaden says how she got bigger.
Yes. We also know that before Xaden got there, somebody did get away. And after... I'm still mad that Dane didn't believe her.
Oh, I'm pissed.
And Dane chose let me read your memories too.
Yeah, which is fucked.
And then, in the end, she ends up sharing a memory with everybody, so everyone believes her, but we...
Sharing it with Taryn sharing it with all the dragons.
Yeah, Taryn sharing it with everybody. But still, it was Amber. And that was just so fucked up that Amber was that person. Rebecca's or Yarros is always going to give you a bitch to hate. And it was Amber.
And during the time where she had told Xaden, and they were doing it in front of... like, in formation in front of everyone...
Yes.
Dane's tell them it's not true. Say that Xaden's lying. That can't be true. Amber's so up the ass with the codex and shit like that. And she was like, this is why I didn't tell you. Because he was like, oh, if it was true, you would have told me. And she's like, no.
So this is where Dane really starts fighting himself.
Yes.
Wow, everything I knew is fucked. And that's going to be a very big theme for a long time with Dane, is him unlearning a lot of the things he learned.
Yeah. And Amber does admit to it.
Yes.
As well. So then Dane's like,
oh, God. Yeah. So now we're going to welcome one of my favorite characters to the party. We're going to welcome Liam. So after the attempted assassination, Xaden kills everybody once time resumes.
Yep.
And Xaden is, hey, I have a lot of things to do. Mm-hmm. I can't always be around to make sure no one's going to murder you. So I'm going to give you this guy who's a first year and can come with you to all your classes and stuff. And he's just going to chill out with you. Babysit you.
And he is number one in the class.
Yes.
Like, best fighter.
Like, physically everything.
And he's rebellion.
Yes, he's a rebellion child. He is just the sweetest little man. And you told me that you pictured him as, like, a country boy.
I pictured him Midwestern boy, tall, like he worked on a farm his whole entire life.
He whittled wood in the book.
Yeah, and he's, like, blonde hair, blue eyes, like... Sorry about that type of vibe. Not the accent, but just the vibe.
And that is very much how I pictured him, too. He's just a sweetie. And what we don't really get at this point in the book, but we get later in the book and in the next one, is that Liam and Xaden were very much like non-blood brothers to each other. They were very much close and trusted each other. Liam says multiple times, I owe him everything. Yeah. So Liam's happy to go along and hang out with Violet. And while Violet is not happy about this at first, she eventually grows to adore Liam. Just like we all do. And so Liam gets a fun, awkward scene here in this book.
Oh, yes.
We learned that unless you were able to block out your dragons...
Which she does not know how to do yet.
Exactly. She can feel everything Taryn is feeling, whether it's anger, rage... happiness, or lust. The first time we get this nice little makeout scene between Xaden and Violet is when Sigale and Taryn are, like, having it for themselves, and Xaden's outside smoking what is supposedly, like, a joint or something to try to mellow out the emotions. And they get into this hot and heavy scene where they finally kiss, and it's great, and it's fantastic.
I think that's the same scene where he also... shows Violet how to block out the power. And in her mind, it's these archives.
Yes.
And there's, like, doors, and she has a door for Andarna, and then, like, a door, or a window for Andarna, and a door for Taryn, which I loved how she described it.
Yes,
like, beautiful. So good. So good.
But this is where Xaden starts to feel a little more for her as well. He masks it as, I'm worried about your safety because I could die if you die. But it's really because he cares. And one of the ways he shows that is he actually makes her a saddle. She has a really hard time staying on Taryn, and Taryn usually catches her, even though most dragons wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That's another thing to point out is Taryn really wants to keep her alive. A lot of dragons wouldn't keep you alive if you fell off of them. So it makes you wonder, why does Taryn... That's weird.
Why does it keep happening?
I have no idea. Why does Taryn want to keep her alive so badly? But Xaden makes her a saddle, and it is the cutest little thing. It even has an attachment for Andarna to hook onto if she needs to.
Yep.
And we love that.
And Xaden made it so Taryn can take it off and on.
Yes, because Taryn's, you're not fucking touching me. The only person allowed to touch me is Violet.
Yeah. Like, and he was so specific on, I let Xaden measure it and whatever, but that's it.
Yeah, and he wasn't even happy about that one.
Yes, so funny.
But through this, we start to see Violet's signet manifesting. So,
and she's one of the last ones to manifest.
Yeah, so she ends up being a lightning wielder. I didn't love this only because... a big theme within this book is how Violet is so different from everybody, and I felt like the lightning signet was a little too close to her mother's signet, which is weather wielding. I know you have some thoughts on this as well. So she manifests it during it wasn't squad battle. She manifested it while she's with Taryn.
No, I think it was squad battle.
Was it? But it shows up a lot more in the book at other times. Jordan, take that away.
I hate her signet. I was telling Stacia that there's this other book series, and the first book is Broken Bonds, and is really good series. It's like a 6-book series, but it's similar vibe to Fourth Wing. There's just no fantastical creatures that they are pairing with, but they enter these, like, families-ish, where it's you're mated to someone via you have the right blood chemistry with them or some shit like that. But her power is like a siphoning power where she can take power from the enemy and siphon it into her mates that are like 4 other men or 5 men. But she can like feed them power to make their power stronger. And I was hoping it would be like that for Violet because it makes the most sense in my head because she is weak and that girl is a weak person as well in that book. And Xaden's power is so insane that if she was able to siphon power from enemies using Taryn's power and push it all into Xaden or anyone else, it would be such a game changer. And I think that's what I was hoping for. But because it's lightning and because she can wield it during big emotions, manifests when she and Xaden are having sex. And that pisses me off to no end. Because the first time they're having sex, they haven't even had sex at this point of when they're like breaking or they're on a desk, but lightning strikes. Then they're breaking the armoire and they're having sex at that point. Another lightning strikes and like she sets the curtains on fire. And then there's like another time where they've had like sex 5 times in a row and it's just lightning. She blows out his window.
It's so dangerous.
And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? And when she finally manifests her signet during squad battle, that she's with Professor Carr, who is the signet professor. And she's like, I can't do it, like, whatever. And
Taryn says, should I get the wing leader?
And that
great one-liner
is when Xaden starts speaking to her and shows her his memories of them having sex like the night prior. And it's like his vision of her, like while they were having sex. And that's how it manifests.
My
again.
biggest thing.
And I'm like, okay, so you have to be horny?
It's just intense emotion, but what kind of cracks me up about all of this, people just know that they're having sex when they start seeing all this lightning.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to advertise when I'm having sex. That's not like a thing that I do.
No.
So it's definitely awkward as shit. Yep. But luckily we get away from that and we get to the actual squad battle, which initially starts with them having to find something that would be useful for the enemy. And Violet's a fucking genius. And she's like, we're going to break into my mom's office and steal something.
Yeah.
And they end up stealing this giant map of all their outposts and all of the different attacks and all kinds of stuff. And God, I thought she was such a genius for this. It was so impressive. Did you like that she was so fucking clever?
Yeah, I really liked how she took over because you weren't allowed to have your squad leader. It was just you and your team members, no leadership.
Yeah, you have your whole squad. You just can't have your squad leader.
So you had to figure it out. So she took the head, and she's obviously super smart. She was studying to be a scribe her entire life. So she has so much more knowledge.
One thing I do love about Violet, though, I want to point out, Violet never wants to be the leader.
That's true. She did make Imogen be the leader.
And you're going to see that in other places, too, where she has chances to be in leadership. She never wants to be a leader. Yeah. She just wants to help. And I love that. She knew
all the right ways of how to utilize everyone else's signet.
Yes.
Which was great.
So then we go into this really fun, dangerous game of capture the flag and stuff.
It's like an egg or some shit.
Yeah.
But they also had to defend their flag.
Yes.
It was
so
very
we have our favorite person, Jack Barlow. And he's going out. I forgot who he's going after.
He was going after Liam.
Was it Liam? Yeah, he's going after Liam. And because she obviously feels so strongly towards Liam, her lightning is able to strike in a sense that knocks Jack Barlow off his dragon. And he goes down in a rock slide and dies.
Yeah. But
so
at the same time, he had done something to Liam. And her and Taryn are nosediving to Liam.
Yes.
And this is the other time Violet's able to use Andarna's power.
Yes.
Where she freezes time for everyone but her and Taryn.
Yes.
So she has to figure out how to manifest it in that way. They're able to get to Liam quick. And Rhiannon's like,
how did you do that?
How did you do that? I thought for sure neither of us were going to make it because they were both going after Liam.
And that's also the time where Andarna's the last time Andarna can do that. And then she's done. So we see it twice, or that power twice, and then she's done. But I just want to mention Jack Barlow's death because fuck Jack Barlow.
Yeah, and that's the first person she kills, and she feels terrible about it. Even though this guy was, like, ready to kill her, she feels absolutely terrible.
It definitely takes a toll on her, and it shows you how much this war and this college will harden her and how much she's going to change.
Yeah.
We're going to skip over to the reunification day ball that they go to, and I thought this ball was so fucked up. Like, making all the rebellion children go to it. It's like a day to celebrate
their parents' death, basically.
And she was like, she told Liam, please don't come. You really don't have to come. And Liam's, no, it's my job to protect you. I want to come. And she's, I will kill Xaden for making you do this. He's like, Xaden's not making me do anything.
Yeah. And they have a terrible interaction. Oh my God. And that's how we find out that the General Mellengren, I think is what his name is, the guy that can see the outcome of battles. That's where he had said, I always like to lay my eyes on Xaden.
Oh, that's not who says that, though. The king says that.
Are you sure it was the king?
It was the king, because the king comes over and talks to Violet, because he's with Lilith, and talks to Violet.
But the general, or the colonel, whatever he
is, he does say something along those lines, but it's the king who does say the exact words. Like,
okay,
then
I'm confusing that. But they were, because it was her mom, Mellengren, and the king.
Yeah, the king is the one who's always, I like to lay my eyes on him once a year.
Okay. But that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's all, and the king is going to come way more into play in the next book as well, so you'll be able to see that a lot. The king is interesting.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, too, Rebecca Yarros does not ever explain how the different countries or whatever, provinces,
like Navarre, Tarandor,
never explains what the hierarchy is in this book. So don't expect knowing what the fuck's going on.
So I can tell you, too, that like Navarre's like the head honcho in a sense, and there's going to be reasons for that, and I'll explain more once we get there. Right. Then there's Tarandor, which is where the rebels came from, and Xaden's dad is the head honcho of Tarandor Providence. Then there's Perimeal, I believe it's pronounced, and not a huge spoiler, but in the next book you learn that Perimeal is more where the Griffin Flyers live, and their college is at. Yeah.
The borders of Perimeal is where they're stationed at, the riders, some of the riders.
Yeah, that's like a front line as well, because right now they believe that the Griffins are their biggest threat. Which super messed up. Xaden's chilling on the parapet, as one does when you're depressed. And Violet goes out there, and there is where we learn... Actually, I don't think we learn it here.
She does? I think she does tell him that she loves him.
Nope, that's not what we learn. Do you know yet about how Xaden took responsibility for all the children?
We do learn that in this book, but I think it's like when they're like in his room. I think he says it.
I thought that he talks more about it.
I think he does say that he has a lot more at stake than
yes, he does say that.
Yeah, and he's.
Do you know what? Do you know what's on his back?
Much. Yeah, you know what's on his back.
So there's 187 marks on his back, each one for a rebellion child. Do you know how he got them?
We don't know how. It's just insinuated that
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and
I think it's in the next book you figure out how.
Yeah.
Okay,
but so it's mentioned, and I think it's on the parapet. She's, I care so much about you. I know you care about me, but you barely know me.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's explained.
It's a big scene, and he's really, you don't know me, and she doesn't. You don't know Xaden. But nobody does at this point.
After this interaction on the parapet, they go back to his room because she's come with me. And all the guys are gone because Garrick and Bodhi were actually at the beginning of the parapet standing there because they knew Xaden was over there.
Cracks me up, man.
They ended up leaving. So then
Violet would kill us for letting her do this.
So then she's leading Xaden back to his room. She doesn't know where it is, but she's, you're going to take me to your room.
Yes.
And then this is where they have sex 5 times in a row. And she tells him that she loves him. She's, I know you told me not to fall for you, but it's already too late for that. Yeah. And I love you. And he never says it back, by the way, which so typical. And I knew he wasn't going to say it back. He does show that he loves and cares about her in his actions. He just never actually says it.
Yes.
But during one of their final times having sex, where they weren't done, they get a knock on the door. And then Xaden's, someone better be dying if you're interrupting me at this hour. And that is where the war games begin.
With the war games, they're supposed to be split up. And Xaden is tasked to go somewhere. And he's like, Violet, you're coming with me. Dane is very much, don't go. I'd rather her go with me. I don't want her to go with you.
She'll be safer with me. You're going to a post that's outside the wars.
Yeah. Aiden is, fuck it, no, she's flying with me. And Violet's, yeah, I'm gonna go fly with him. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Because we know that Taryn and Sagael can't be apart for so long.
What you don't really realize until we get into it a little bit more is that the whole crew flying with Xaden are all rebellion children except for Violet. And no one realized that for a while.
I think some people realize that, but not Violet. For what
I'm saying, like, nobody... Oh, yeah, you're correct. So that is where we find out that Xaden has actually been working with Griffin Riders.
Yeah. Wait.
Go ahead.
Isn't Dane's dad the one who assigned the post?
Dane's
okay,
dad
that's important to know.
Dane's dad didn't assign that. So Dane's dad told him to go there. And this is where we learn that Xaden's been working with Griffin Riders because Venom and Wyvern are real, and he's been sneaking them these alloyed daggers to help fight them because it's the only thing that can protect them. The Griffins don't have a ward like they do, and they're trying to stay protected.
And Venom can only die from these.
And so these are huge bombs on Violet because Violet's, wait, Venom and Wyvern aren't real. Why are we helping the Griffin Riders? They're our enemy. It's a lot of bomb dropping. And this is where the miscommunication trope starts because she's like, you are lying to me. And he's, I wasn't lying.
I was withholding the truth.
I was withholding information.
And she starts realizing the things that her dad had said to her about the fable book, that these fables have been passed down from history so we can learn from them and never forget. So essentially her dad was like, hey, these stories are actually real. Trust in these things, basically.
And we also learn that basically Lilith, her mom, has been lying to everybody. Because Lilith is the reason that nobody knows that these things exist outside the ward.
And Xaden gives her a dagger that she immediately recognizes is her mom's. And it's made out of the same
But it's
material.
not her mom's. She said, where'd you get my mom's dagger? And he said, it's not your mom's, but she probably has one like it because she knows she needs it against the Venom. It's because it's his dagger.
Because I thought he said it was her dagger.
No, it's one of the alloyed tip daggers, and they all look the same. Because she was confused. She's like, why did you go to my mom's office and get that? He goes, it's not your mom's, but she probably has one like it because she knows what's out there.
Yeah, and Violet's probably seen something similar. Okay, I got confused in that part.
That one I know is for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, so Lilith has been lying to everyone about this. Yeah. And we're going to get a little into more of how Lilith lied in Iron Flame, and that's what I'm really excited for you to see as well.
Okay.
We're also learning that Dane sucks.
Even more so than he sucked before because used his signet on Violet.
Without her knowing.
Without her consent, and passed that information to his dad.
So Dane was being a loyal little puppy, and this is where I want to try to give Dane some grace because Dane really did think he was doing correct because that's what he's been told by his father. But he still sucks.
But he did it without her acknowledgement because at least during the assassination attempt, he had asked her for consent.
No, he didn't. He went to reach and she said, get away from me.
No, he was like, let me read your mind.
Oh, yeah. I guess
he was announcing
but
that
the other one, he touched her and she didn't connect. She didn't connect that was what was happening. So they realized that Dane is the reason they were sent off to here, and this is where
the post is empty.
No one's there. And it's
there.
also trapped to have Venom and Wyvern come there. So this is where Violet learns that they're real, and she battles them for the very first time.
Yeah.
Something I want to point out about Venom that you probably don't know yet because you haven't read Iron Flame, there are different levels of Venom. Really quickly, the way anyone can become a Venom, the way you do it is you pull magic from the ground or inanimate objects or people. But you pull magic. It is a conscious choice that someone has to make to become Venom. Mm-hmm. Once you pull from the ground, though, they say magic is all about balance. So when you take from the earth, the magic is going to take from you. Venom are immortal beings. They don't have to have dragons to wield magic.
Yeah.
They're usually very greedy. And they want more power. So there's actually different tiers of Venom that we're going to learn about.
We did hear a little bit about it.
Yes.
Where one of the Venom was like, oh, I'll take you to my sage.
Yes. So there are, but there's different levels. So there is the sage, who we'll learn more about. These Venom are more lower tiered Venom, but they're still very lethal. And what you have to remember, too, is they create the Wyvern.
Right.
And so it's the opposite of dragons. So if the venin dies, all the wyvern it's created dies.
Mm-hmm.
But if a wyvern dies, the venin's not affected. So it's the opposite. Really quick for people, dragons have 4 legs, wyvern have 2.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Their, like, wings have, like, claws.
Yes.
For them to, like, utilize.
So during this battle, I'm not going to get too into the battle because you just need to read it, but I'm so shocked that you did not cry at this scene because every time I read this goddamn part, I cry. And it was Liam's death.
Yeah, and I explained to her, because I had told her, I'm like, 90% of the way through the book. I'm finishing it tonight, whatever. And she's, yeah, better you finish it tonight than finishing it on the train ride here.
Yes.
Because you will be sobbing. And I said, oh, okay, great. My issue was...
Pop off.
It was in Violet's POV, obviously. This entire book is except for the last chapter. And there's so much going on because they're in the middle of a battle. But Xaden has thrown up the shadows, so they're cloaked.
Mm-hmm.
But she's still, like, focusing on so many other things where she's not fully... Her attention isn't fully on Liam. And that's why it was so hard for me to... I was definitely sad. 100%. I was devastated.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I wasn't at the point where I was going to cry because their moment, to me, never actually happened. To where Liam and Zane's moment, I think if I would have had the POV of Liam and Xaden, I think I called him Zane by accident. Okay. Had their POV of that moment, I think I would have cried at that because it seemed from Violet's point of view that their moment was way more intimate.
Yeah.
Compared to hers, which is why I was like, I didn't cry.
Liam didn't deserve to die, though. And that makes me sad. And that's why I said you can't trust Rebecca Yarros, because she made us all fall in love with Liam, and then she took him away, and we were so sad.
Yeah.
There's a part in Iron Flame that I think you'll find really interesting if you liked Liam a lot, which I'm excited for. You liked Liam a lot.
Yeah, I did.
Then you're really going to learn part in Iron Flame. So he dies, and it is a huge tragedy. I hate it. But we still have a battle to go, so they're battling, and Violet is on the brink of burnout. She's about to die, and they're like, we gotta take her, so we're gonna welcome everybody to Orisha.
Oh, she was also stabbed, by the way, and she was bleeding black.
Yes.
And we do get her POV of her coming in and out of consciousness.
Yes.
Where she hears, like, conversations happening, and... someone was like, oh, are you sure you want to bring her to him?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where I was like...
That's where you started getting more...
I was like, I know who's going to be there.
But you didn't know until that point.
I didn't know until that point, but I knew who was going to be there.
Yes, so welcome to Orisha. Orisha is Xaden's home. It is where he grew up. It is a part of Tyrrendor. And we get Xaden's POV and everything.
Love his POV.
There is a line that he says, and I have always said that if a man is not like this, I don't want him.
Yep.
And it's, she exists and I get turned on. If a man doesn't feel that way about me, I don't want him.
Yep.
I don't.
100%.
Sorry. So it was really fun seeing Xaden's POV, and we welcome the one, the only... Brennan Sorengale into the chat. Everyone thought he's dead, but he's been hiding in Orisha this whole time, basically starting this revolution. And Xaden's known that he has been alive this entire time, which is also going to be fun in the miscommunication trope.
Love that.
But yeah, it's crazy. And that's literally the last sentence, is realizing that he's alive. So we don't get to see her reaction until Iron Flame.
We do know, because it's from Xaden's POV, that she does remember the things that had happened between them, because he was nervous, she had lost her memories, and that he would have to re-explain everything that was going on. But she says to him, oh, like, how am I alive?
Yes.
Whatever. And her brother's a mender.
Yeah, you have to
not
remember.
A healer. He's a mender.
His signet is literally to mend, like, the injured. They can't mend the dead, but they can mend the injured.
And she was on the brink of death.
Yes.
Which is why Xaden was like, hold on. She was stabbed in the side with a poison dagger. Bleeding black, whatever. And the poison was, like, rendering her immobile and couldn't talk.
Yes.
It was blocking her magic, so she couldn't communicate with Taryn or Xaden or Indarna. But Xaden knew that she was still alive because of Taryn.
Yes.
Basically.
So that was the last we get of that.
Yep.
And that's where it'll pick. What's nice about Rebecca Yarros is she picks up right where she leaves off.
Yeah, and I did read the first page of Iron Flame.
Okay.
Know like where we start.
Yeah, it always picks up. So
which I do appreciate.
Something about Rebecca Yarros and the Empyrean. This is called the Empyrean series, by the way. Her books will always leave you on a giant cliffhanger, and she will always pick up right where she leaves off. Yeah, so that'll be really good. Yeah, you'll see that. We have we really don't have a little bit of time, but it's okay.
Yeah, we can spend 5 minutes.
Yeah. Do you have any theories that you want to put into the universe for the next 2 books?
One thing that I was like uncomfortable with was the way the Griffin Rider, the lead woman, how Violet was portraying the relationship between her and Xaden. And I was like, oh, so this was Xaden's woman at one point, the Griffin Rider, head rider. That was the vibe I was getting. Because the way that she describes their interacting, it was familiar. I think she hinted at that she was beautiful or like good looking in a sense, and she was strong and whatever. And in my head, I was like, there's history between them. Violet was almost like a little bit jealous in the way that, you didn't pick up on this? That's what I picked up on immediately.
That's not what I'm looking for.
Okay, because the other thing too is like when she's in her like in and out coma, that Xaden asked, or it's like Xaden's POV, I can't remember which one, but Xaden specifically asked if one from the Griffin Riders is alive, and that leader is alive, and he was like, oh, thank God. So I was like, oh. And the reason why I think they were dating or whatever, they had a thing, is because when they approached Xaden and Violet like making out on the rock, she had said something along the lines of, oh, is this how riders really spend their time? Or it just insinuated something like, it was interesting. So that's the vibe. That's the only real theory I have right now, because obviously I spewed my other theories already, like during this. But that's like one we hadn't talked about yet. So, yeah.
So you're on the right track. I'll give you that much. Right. However, I wish I could tell you what I'm looking for. Because you're not completely wrong. But
are you looking for a conversation? Are you looking for...
Did they say what her name was?
Yes.
What was her name?
It's not in here. It's like when he's asking if she's okay. I think it's in his POV. I'm almost positive.
You think it's in his POV?
Yeah.
Because I'm curious as to what her name was. Blah, blah, blah. She's never looked so frail, cool beans. You should have told her.
Okay, maybe it's like in her POV, but
I'll look for it. I wonder if
it's in either this chapter or it's the chapter beforehand. 100%. Because that's where I was like,
I would love to know what her name was.
They say her name, 100%.
Because you're wrong.
And that they don't have a relationship?
Yes. You're correct, though, that they're familiar with each other.
I definitely knew that they were familiar.
I need to know what her name was for me to confirm that, but I think I know who it was, and if I'm correct, then you're technically wrong. Okay. Because I don't think it's who... Yeah. I'll have to look for that. But yeah, she's on the right path. She's on the right path. That's cool. I'm glad that's your theory. You are going to be in for such a treat in the next book. There's so many things that are going to make more sense to you once you read it. And it's going to be great. Once you get to Onyx Storm, then you and I could really pull out the red string together. Because I've already, shout out to my friends Annalise and Sarah. We already have a shared note of theories after Onyx Storm. And we're going to go back and actually find evidence for those theories. Yeah. Rebecca Yarros has told us that she's going to take some time off. And then she's going to spend... I think it's because she's going to start in the summer and spend a lot of time just diving into the next book of the Empyrean series. I think we'll get it at some point next year. I don't think we'll have to wait till 2027. I do think it'll happen in 2026. Maybe towards the end of 2026, but we'll get it next year. Yeah. Yeah, this comes out 2 weeks from now. Yes. The next episode we record, which will be 3 weeks from now, you'll be able to give your football Super Bowl update on if the Chiefs had won or... I'm so scared. Oh my God, I'm so stressed out about it. It's like I shouldn't be so stressed out about it, but I am so stressed out about it. A lot of people rooting against us. So I will be able to give an update. But I'm glad we were able to talk about this finally. And I'm really excited for you to read the next book, thank God. Yes. But thank you guys all for listening. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And if you haven't done so already, obviously share, subscribe, follow.
completely
Do it
checked
all.
out pod everywhere.
Please do it. That'd be great.
Yeah. Give us some book recs. I do have
send
a
us
book
some
rec.
book recs.
I don't think it'll be this next episode that I got this book rec for, but it'll be the one after.
Yeah, please
that
send
I'll be
us
doing.
some.
Yeah, if you have like thriller books, horror books, romance, fantasy.
I need more.
Yeah.
Send it over. You technically don't need more, but
I technically don't need more, but I am open to doing certain books if
Yes.
you've been interested, or
it's
if you just want to hear.
TBR already.
Yeah,
you just need to read it
most
first.
likely.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, please send it to us. And
Yeah.
until next week,
Yeah.
bye bye.